So you were 7, you decided this. I'd asked Joe Kelly earlier, I'm curious, was comic reading a solitary experience for you? Were you a solitary kid? Like, did drawing provide for you an escape? Or did you have a circle of friends with which you read comics?
It was both. You know, it was a solitary experience when I was reading the comics, but I had a couple of friends that also read comics, and so we would talk about them, and you know, during Halloween, dress up, you know, together as, you know, the characters, and go out together, and you know, we had little clubs, you know, you know,
right.
and like the detective club, you know, and stuff like that. It's hilarious.
That's so great, though.
Yeah, well, you know, it's what you did when you were 8 or 9 years old,
right.
You know. So, but full of rich fantasy and imagination, and a lot of exploration and it just adventure. Mm-hmm. You know, adventure.
Flash forward a little bit. If memory serves, Dick Giordano lived near you. Is that correct?
I met Dick when I was about 16 or 17, and I met him. I had read that DC was doing tours at the time for fans, and I took it upon myself to get all dressed up. I put on a jacket and a tie and a clean shirt, and I went to the appointed day that I had read about. And the receptionist at the time, I think this was when they were at 909 3rd Avenue, so it was quite a while ago. The receptionist, you know, I walked into the office, and the receptionist said, "Well, we don't do tours anymore." And you know, I think I started crying or something. Right. You know, it's like, you know, I came all the way from Connecticut. I have a tie on. You know, come on, give me a break. So she was very nice, and she called up Jack Miller. I don't know if you recognize that name. He used to be the editor of Dead Man at the time. And apparently Jack had like a hole in his schedule. But Jack came out, and he took me around. And I met, you know, Carmine, and I met Neil Adams, and and Neil was working on a Strange Adventures cover at the time. You know, Phil, how these memories are just burned into your. Go ahead.
I was just curious if DC had a bullpen, like the artists were working at DC.
Yeah, well, Neil, you know, always was an artist apart. So he had a little desk. I don't know if that was his permanent station or if that was just a temporary, you know, desk that he was working at. But I met, you know, and Jack introduced me to Dick Giordano, and Dick said to me, "I know you," and I said, "Really?" He said, "You're the guy that wrote me all those letters while I was at Charlton." And I was a big letter writer to the books at Charlton. I had been a big fan of their books. And you know, I told him that we had a little discussion, and I told him that, you know, I wanted to be an artist also. And he said, "Well, where do you live?" And I said, "You know, I live in Bridgeport." And he lived in Stratford, which is neighboring town. And he said, "Look me up," or, you know, he gave me his number, and I did. And he was, wow. Yeah, I know. And I started showing him my work. I mean, he was extraordinarily generous with his time and with his patience. And again, you know how these memories are just burned into your file. I remember the exact moment when he said to me, I'd shown him a page after, you know, it's been a while, a couple of years probably, of going up to his house and watching him work or getting tips. But he looked at this page and he said, "This is a good page." And he said to me, "If you can do one good page, you can do another." And that was kind of the turning point in terms of my confidence in whether or not I could actually do this. You know, there was another time, if I just babble on. I was at one of the early comic conventions in New York, you know, with my detective club friends, and I bumped into Gil Kane, and I showed him my couple of pages that I had, you know, my portfolio, and he said, "Not that good." And, you know, I was very disappointed because I was already graduating from high school. I was like trying to figure out, should I go to college or not? You know, what do I want to do? And I asked him, well, what do you think about the inking? And he said, not bad. And it was at that point that I decided maybe I should switch from penciling to inking, just to accelerate the process of breaking in and moving. You know, I really wanted to live in New York. Living in Connecticut, you would see all the New York channels, you know, WOR and WNEW, and this is where I really wanted to live, because this is where the action was. And so I really wanted to get out of Connecticut, and I think that was really the beginning of my taking inking a little bit more seriously and using that as a vehicle to break into comics.
I'm actually curious, though, when you discovered there was a difference between penciling and inking. Like, how was it with Dick, or when did you figure out how comics were made and the different possibilities there were in terms of you know, employment opportunities? I know a lot of people who have no idea, you know, who don't work in our business, that don't know the difference between, say, inking and coloring, or couldn't tell you the difference between penciling and, you know, coloring, for example. So when did you were young when you figured out that?
I was pretty involved in, you know, from maybe 11, 12 on through my teenage years in what was fandom at the time. And it's not like it is obviously today, which is very internet-based. It was mimeograph-based.
Right.
So, you know, you would draw something, or I would draw something and send it out to the editor, and they would, you know, trace it on carbon paper, you know, and kind of run it off from the machine, you know. I mean, it was like reading comics on the back of a shovel or something, you know. It was just so crude. But, so I was familiar, you know, fairly early on with the different disciplines, if you know what I'm saying, you know, between penciling and inking and running off the copies of the mimeograph machine.
Stapling.
Right. Yeah. Yes! I mean, yes, literally.